like to welcome everybody to the April meeting of the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Commission. At this time, we'll call the meeting to order. As always, our first item will be the prayer and pledge of allegiance, and Ricky Turner has agreed to lead us in that. Ricky, thank you.
Thank you. Let us pray. To our God and our Heavenly Father, we're so thankful for this day and for all your many blessings. We thank you for this council who have gathered here today to discuss the business of the Parks and Rec for this wonderful city. Be with all the leaders and all the citizens of this great community. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, to prove that we're all creatures of habit, they swapped the flags around. That's a non-binding pledge. That's embarrassing. It was too late, though. We were committed. For whoever pulled that trick, that was a good one. Thank you.
I caught myself.
April Fools. There we go. We proved it. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our February meeting. We did not meet in March. I believe everybody received their packet earlier in the week, and you had a chance to review those minutes. We'll entertain any changes or corrections that need to be made, and if none, motion for acceptance.
I move we accept, Mr. Chairman, the minutes.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Since we missed a month, we've got a busy meeting, and we'll have a challenge getting through this timely. So I'd ask everybody that's going to present or has any discussion, be thorough but concise and brief. So with that, we'll start with the annual report, and then we got Becky Johnson and Lanny are going to present that. Becky, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, I'd like to start off by just saying it's a very good document that we're presenting to you. We're very proud to put together an annual report. This is actually the third one that we've presented to you in this form. And it shows that as a department that we're growing, that we're reaching out, that we're making partnerships with other departments and other agencies throughout the city. You can see that our stream restoration and water quality project that we did with the Water and Sewer Department is something to be very proud of for this department and will benefit the city. The way that we have been going after tournaments is essentially has made a huge economic impact in our community. The Southern Regional Tournament, over $8 million. The tournaments that we were involved with last year, if you add those up, it was over $25 million in economic impact from this department. So we think that's very significant. Of course, we're joining partnerships with the Murfreesboro City Schools. We had a demonstration project which we call the Fun Company, and that's Families Understanding Nature and Nutrition, working with MTSU, and that is now still ongoing. We're in phase 2 and seems to be paying premiums. I know I got a call from Sam Stockard the other day, and there was a survey from the I think it was Robert Johnson Foundation, and it showed that Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, was actually third among the highest in Tennessee in terms of healthy communities. And that was our goal. If you recall, we wanted to become not just third, but first in the state in healthy communities. And a lot of the things that we do and the activities that we offer, like the Fun Project and everything, really sparks awareness in healthy eating, healthy lifestyles, and we feel like we're making some inroads, and we're very proud that we're now third, but we're going to shoot for first, not only in the state, but in the southeastern region, and hopefully someday rank very high in the nation. But I think you can see where our participant numbers are up. both in our centers and our programs. And we're awfully proud of the fact that we offer financial assistance programs to our citizens so that in programs that require a fee, that there's an option for those people to still participate. And if you look at the number that equates to the number of passes and admissions to our programs, that number is $414,764.75, which is a very significant amount of money that we're contributing to make sure that people have an opportunity to play. And of course, in my message to everyone from the report, I have to say that all of the things that we do would not be possible without the efforts of this commission, and we certainly appreciate it from the staff, from the city manager, assistant city manager, and the Murfreesboro City Council. So thank you to each one of you, and I think the report shows exactly the dedication and the commitment that we have to Parks and Recreation in the city of Murfreesboro. Becky's going to give you some highlights of that report.
Lanny touched on quite a few of them, but some of the things that are mentioned in his message, I just wanted to point out that our facility attendance was up 69,302 users over last year. He did mention the $8 million economic impact on our youth, on the United States Youth Soccer Regional Tournament. We also have in here our access statements and the organizational chart that shows all our staffing and how we fall into place. We have in here the section about the awards that we received through the Tennessee Recreation and Parks Association this past year, the awards that we won there. We have all our highlights on our parks. We have information on the pavilion rentals and the revenues that each of them raised. We do have a page further on that's dedicated to that. We have McKnight Park, which had our Stones River Kiwanis Club had over 840 participants. The Optimist Club had 800 participants. It was also a TSSAA Spring Fling site. And we have adult leagues there that had 123 teams. And we had over 120 participants through the schools that used those fields. At Old Fort Park, we have the tennis that is used by the county schools and the Murfreesboro Tennis Association. We had the city tournament that had 204 participants, the TSSAA Spring Fling site. It was also the Tennessee Junior Team Tennis State Tournament with over 500 participants. Lanny touched on the Old Fort Park Stream Restoration and Water Quality Enhancement Project, which was funded by the stormwater fees. The project was $330,000, and it partnered with the Water and Sewer Department and Parks and Recreation to serve as a demonstration area for water quality and storm management. We have Cannonsburg, which was up almost 57,000 visitors over last year, which is quite an increase in visitors at Cannonsburg. We have Patterson Park and Rogers Park, which had has the amenities and facility rentals as well. We had Richard Siegel Park, which has the Murfreesboro Soccer Club uses it. They had 425 participants. We had our recreation program, which had 1,300 participants. The Murfreesboro Hispanic League had 32 teams. We also had, as I mentioned before, the Southern Regional Tournament with 184 teams. The Bash in the Borough Girls Soccer Tournament, which was 102 teams. It was also a Spring Fling site. The Bash in the Borough Boys Soccer's Club, which was 184 teams. And the Tennessee State Soccer Association Boys State Cup, which had 84 teams. As you can see, Richard Siegel Park is always in high demand. We have our Greenway System, which completed Phase 3, which was an additional 1 mile, bringing us to 12 miles of trails of Greenway System. We have our park locator on page 15 that tells you all the amenities at all of our parks. We have 2.5 pages this year dedicated to all our use agreements. We have 136 agreements which provide additional services for parks and recreation, anywhere from food vendors to groups that do 5Ks, to wellness, athletics, performance agreements, and more. You can see those lists on those pages. We had the Fun Project, which Lanny touched on, which was helping families understand nature and nutrition, and that is funded by a grant. Then we have our rental information, in which Patterson Park Community Center, their rental, which is their venues in-house, totaled $69,743. Sportscom rentals was $23,230. The facility attendance figures for the total between Sportscom and Patterson, which includes the regular daily users and those that come and rent the facilities, was 402,434 users. Then you can see on the page they break down who comes for each particular program and whatnot. We have our field revenue. Our fields generated $45,974 in revenue from renting out our fields to other groups. Our spring fling revenues from admission and parking was $20,269 as well. Our pavilion rentals, we had over 1,000 rentals last year in the pavilions for all of our parks, which generated $49,890. And our pavilions are rented only from April 1st through October 1st. So that can kind of give you an idea of just how busy those pavilions are during those peak months. Gateway Island, we had 60 reservations. 48 of them were for weddings. So it's definitely caught on that that's a pretty place to have weddings. And then we had walks and runs out there and 5 other rentals, which could be family picnics or corporate picnics. Financial assistance, we gave out over $400,000 last year in financial assistance. We are also proud to say that in 2011, the City of Murfreesboro added Facebook. So we have been using Facebook. We also do Constant Contact, which is our e-newsletters, and last year we sent out over 30,000 e-newsletters to let people know what's coming up in the way of our programs. We have our budget information, and our budget is a little hard to follow. Our annual report is a typical calendar year, but our budgets, we just show you the 2011, 2012, and then 2012 and the 13. Just because of the way they fall in with our annual report, it's hard to give you one clear set of numbers. Then our program information. Murfreesboro Parks and Rec had over 150 in-house programs this past year with 181,654 participants, which is an increase of 7,808 participants over last year. And if you think about that, that is almost 8,000, which would probably be about the equivalent of 3 high schools in Murfreesboro. So if you think of the typical number of kids in 3 high schools worth of people, that's how many came to our programs this year over last year. And just if anybody else is interested in a copy of this, we will be posting it on the website so that anybody who would like to download the annual report and really read through it and look at all the information in it. It'll be posted on our website, which is www.murfreesborotn.gov/parks.
All right. Thanks, Becky. It's a nice report. Anybody have any questions or comments? Well done. Thank you for doing this.
No problem.
Next item on the agenda is the Kids Castle proposal, and I'll turn it over to Lanny and Angela.
Mr. Chair, this is a project that we have been working on for some time. We've been back to the commission and reported on our progress, and today we're ready to make a recommendation to the Parks and Recreation Commission. The Kids Castle project was built by efforts of the community in 1995. Served us well. I always call it a victim of its own success. It is flat worn out, and it's ready to be replaced. We were able to get a funding grant from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation for $150,000 with a commitment from the City Council for the matching of $150,000. We issued a RFP, which we call Request for Proposals, back sometime last year. They came in November. We went through a very extensive review of those proposals, and at the end, the committee that we had put together all agreed that we needed to reissue the RFP, sharpen it up some. There were some things that we saw that we could make it better and level the field for all the people that were competing. And so we did that. We reissued on February the 26th. We received those March the 16th. We did receive proposals from the original 6 plus 1, which was not did not meet the qualifications. We did put a proposed review team together as stated in the request for proposals. That team said all proposals will be evaluated by a proposal review team comprised of individuals from the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation staff and from our staff, Mr. Thomas Laird, our superintendent of athletics, and also the father of 2 children that are actively playing on playgrounds, Miss Marlene Sewell, who is our certified playground person in our department, is certified for playground inspection, was part of that. And of course, Marlene has grandchildren and children, has been to the park probably more than most. And then Miss Angela Jackson, the assistant director, was on that team. Miss Jackson has a 3-year-old, and she usually is at the park after work with Meridian. And then, of course, myself, who has 2 grown children, now 2 grandchildren, who participate at the park. So we have those folks that served on it. We had the original Kids Castle Planning Committee, 2 that was represented on there, Mr. Tom Beckwith and Miss Susan Steen, who was the co-chairs of the original playground committee, and we were awfully proud that they agreed to serve. We thought that was important because there was such a dedication by those 2 to organize that effort some 17 years ago and make those dreams come true. And Mr. Beckwith is with us today. Tom, we want to recognize you and say thank you for all you've done, and continues to want to make sure that the playground that is replaced is of equal or greater play value than the one that is out there now. Also, along with them was Miss Jessica Wing, who is a community member and a parent, and Miss Angie Keating, who is also a community member and a parent, and members of several organizations, Junior League and others, that represented us on the team. And there was lots of discussion. We were very pleased with the team members. They took it very seriously. They read those proposals from front to back. They even caught stuff that we missed when we went through. So they were very dedicated to make sure that we followed the procedure, that we made an effort to pick the best proposal and look at the play value of the playground that's being proposed, and make sure that when we replace Kids Castle, that it will uphold the legacy that we have had for so many years. So,
let me, if I could interrupt, also add that Mr. Bradshaw, Mr. Chris Bradshaw, represented this commission also on that team.
Right. Yeah, and we put in there that we would have a commission member on there. Mr. Bradshaw was the person that did represent that. From here, what I'd like to do is I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Jackson, who is going to talk about the scoring process that we had, the way we had to vet that, the involvement that we had with legal, with the state comptroller, to make sure that our bid was very precise in terms of fairness and equity and et cetera. So, Ms. Jackson, if you could take it from here.
Sure, thank you. As Mr. Goodwin mentioned, we have been through a long and detailed process to bring us to this point. The way that we issued the request for proposal is very different than the way we normally do purchasing. Normally, we put out specifications and basically take the lowest bid that meets those qualifications. In this case, because of the creative aspects of a playground and the things that go into that, and because we were working with a more set dollar amount, because this project was funded partially through a grant, and we knew that we were working with a budget of $300,000. What we did is work with our city's legal department, who consulted with the state comptroller on exactly how we could issue this RFP to allow for that creativity and allow for us to really bring in the best possible playground while still working within the restrictions that are given to us by the city and state guidelines for purchasing. One of the requirements as a part of that, in order to put this together in a way that the proposals could be judged fairly and equally, required a scoring system. It's a 100-point scale. 25 points are possible for the qualifications of the proposal, the expertise of the team with the emphasis on the project manager assigned, and the proposer's ability to meet all aspects of the proposal. 15 points were possible for the completion of the presentation of the proposal as submitted in terms of compliance, schedule, and overall value. The 60 points that were remained were 10 points each for the 6 goals that we had listed, and they really dealt with the content and quality of the proposal. What we looked at with these 6 proposers that we felt met the first 2 qualifications and met them well, we really wanted to focus on these goals. This is really the key to the selection. With these 6 goals. The first is to develop a comprehensive plan for a renovation that would be a stimulating place for creative play, with a priority being consideration for the safety of its users. Number 2, to design elements and materials that will have longevity, that are low maintenance or maintenance free. Number 3, to create zones that are age appropriate with features that challenge children to be physically active. Number 4, to be accessible to children of various ability levels, incorporating innovative designs to meet ADA standards and to allow for diversity of use. Number 5, to maintain consideration for the ambiance of the area with a design that fits the park space, honoring the exceptional community involvement, passion, and pride that went into the original Kids Castle creation. And finally, to generate excitement in the playground's design and features, to create a space that would capture the attention of children and their families for maximum play value. So this is what our selection committee was charged with, to consider each of these points in making their selection. We have spent several hours on this process and really looked at a lot of things, but when it came time to score, this is what we came down to. I have a copy of the scoring sheet for anyone who is interested in seeing that, and I can, if I could, just pass that on down for that scoring sheet. But our committee's recommendation to this commission is for Miracle Playground. And Mr. Laird, if you could, we are very excited about the elements that are proposed here in Miracle Playground. I know it's a little bit difficult to see the board from here and to really take in all of the different things that are offered as a part of this playground, but it has 10 slides, 46 additional play pieces, not including the swing. So looking at 46 different things to do, not including the swings. And the swings will have 4 belt seats, 2 bucket seats, and 2 multi-user accessible seats. So really looking at that playground proposal, the height, the different age categories and descriptions that are a part of that, looking at all of the different elements of that, our committee was very excited and very much in agreement that this was the best proposal based on the criteria that we were working with, and is our recommendation to you.
All right.
Mr. Chair, if I could, I'd like for Mr. Beckwith to come forward and say a few things on the behalf of the citizens in the committee.
Well, I really had nothing prepared, but I would like to say that going into this process, and I was honored to be asked to be part of it, as was Ms. Steen. Going into it, I really was heartbroken that we were going to take the playground down because so much did go into it. But this is a good playground. It won't be what we have now, but it will be a playground that will last for many, many years. It will do a lot of wonderful, give kids a lot of wonderful things to do. We looked at a bunch of great proposals. I mean, there were some great ideas out there. But all around, when you get into ADA issues and maintenance, the longevity, things for kids to do, and what's going to be exciting for children, the committee really agreed that this was the best. And it's a good company. It appears to be a great company that we will be dealing with, and it will be around for many, many years to come.
All right. Tom, we greatly appreciate your time.
It's a pleasure.
It means a lot, and it's whether it's stuff like this or the other programs we run, volunteers like yourself make it possible. So
well, it's an honor to be part of it again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Any questions or comments?
One question related to if we're making a recommendation to approve this bid, it goes before the City Council, I suppose.
Yes.
And what is the timeline for completion of the project?
We want to have the playground ready to play on this summer. It is our goal to have it complete before May 30th and ready to go. There's several factors that will influence that, but one of the reasons for that particular date, because of the grant funding of this, if we can close out this project, we'll be eligible to apply for additional grant funding the next round. So that's driving us, as well as the need to play. So we want to get it ready as quickly as we can.
Wow, that's amazing. Good question. Any other questions or comments? Well, thanks you guys for your work on it. You did a good job putting it all together, and I know it'll be a great end product. So,
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the recommendation as submitted.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks again for your work.
Thank you.
Item 4 is the proposed cancellation/refund policy for Gateway Island, and Melinda Tate is going to. Did I skip one? No, I did. I already checked it off, Rachel. I'm sorry. I prematurely checked your item. That just shows you how slow I am.
You want to approve it?
If I don't write it down, or if I do, it's done. We're going to do the proposed camping procedural changes for Barfield Crescent Park, and Rachel Singer is going to do that for us. Rachel, I apologize.
No problem. I'm seeking approval for the new campground procedures for the backcountry camping at Barfield Crescent Park. We are very fortunate to have a beautiful walk-in campground located within our park. From the inception of Barfield Crescent Park, the campground has been used as a teaching tool for beginning backpacking for families, scouts, and various other groups. This campground is unique in that we require a workshop for all participants which focus on the national practices of leave no trace prior to being allowed to camp. Currently, other requirements needed to use the campground are the group has to have a minimum of 20 people, and an outdoor program staff must be present for the duration of the campout, which on average is about 16 hours. Due to the staff requirement, the Barfield Crescent Campground is severely underutilized. 2 to 3 family campouts are scheduled per year, and we provide food, gear, and staff-led programming. This is very consuming of our staff hours, which is the reason for only offering it a few times a year. Other groups inquire about the use of the campground, but cannot book due to either they don't have the 20-person minimum, or 2, they request it the best time of year for camping, which also coincides with our busiest season for Parks and Rec. So therefore, the staff is usually at their max hours that they're budgeted for with existing programs or special events. Also, when reviewing the cost breakdown between the staff hours paid and the revenue made, it's not very practical. With the approval of this new procedure and the revision of the campground rules, many more people would have the opportunity to be engaged in a unique outdoor experience while utilizing an already existing facility in our park. We would continue to gear this opportunity towards approved groups with outdoor education in their mission, such as Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, youth groups, green clubs, or science clubs. The proposed procedure would allow approved groups to be allowed to camp without a staff member present. The existing requirement of the Leave No Trace workshop would remain for all participants prior to camping. Then, in addition, approved group leaders would have to attend a leaders orientation. This would show emergency access routes, give names and phone numbers of those who to contact in case of emergency, park maps, and further instructions of park policies and rules. On the days the campground is booked, staff will notify dispatch and the park officers of the group attending, make sure that all emergency routes are accessible to emergency personnel, and do a personal final check of the campground upon closing the wilderness station, which would be around 8 o'clock. In closing, this would be a great outdoor education experience that would allow and promote responsible access to our city-run campground through education and stewardship in our city park. And I hope you'll consider the changes in these procedures. Do you have any questions?
Rachel, thanks. Any questions or comments about the requested change?
I think the changes are a great idea. I mean, you have this great facility, so to speak, and it's being underutilized. I move to approve.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Rachel, thanks. I agree. I think it's a great idea. Now we will move to item 4. Linda Tate, come on down. We're going to talk about the proposed cancellation refund policy for Gateway Island. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Well, it's becoming bridal season out at Gateway Island. Everybody's discovered that it's such a beautiful place for a wedding. But I propose a change in the cancellation or the refund policy for the Gateway Island to make it consistent with the policy at Canonsburg. Under the Gateway's current cancellation policy, 100% refund will be given if the event is canceled at least 1 week prior to the reserved date, and 95% will be returned if it's less than 1 week. Well, because the Gateway Island is almost always reserved months, if not a year in advance, because weddings take a long time to plan, a canceled date at the last minute is usually never refilled. And many staff hours are spent on the reservation with paperwork and emails and phone calls and tours of the facility prior to the event. And I believe the current refund policy is more appropriate for a park pavilion, where it's more likely that people will want to reserve it at the last minute. And reserving the Gateway Island is not a last-minute decision. In 2011, there were 20 paid reservations that were canceled, and of these, 4 were rebooked because the cancellation was made at least 5 months before the event. Now, those 16 that we were not able to rebook, if we average it at $250 a reservation, we lost about $4,000 to $5,600 in revenue because we weren't able to rebook it. But more importantly, people who may have wanted that date for their wedding were not able to use it because somebody had dibs on it for a year. Excuse me. Canonsburg Village has a $100 non-refundable reservation fee, and I propose we institute the same fee for the Gateway Island to make both wedding venue fees more consistent. And it would probably start 12 months from now because we've already have reservations in the books, and it would be starting 12 months from whenever it's approved. And the new policy would read, prices include a $100 non-refundable administration fee. A full refund minus the administration fee will be given when a patron cancels prior to the facility rental. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I guess it's for legal counsel. Would it be appropriate to grandfather, say a set date, to grandfather those bookings that are currently on the books and apply this to any other booking that, say, effective May 1st, for example?
Yes, we could do that. Anyone that's already made their reservation, they would go under the old policy, and then we could start May 1 with this new policy for any future reservations.
I was thinking the same thing. That's what I would do, Melinda.
We are pretty booked between now and the end of the year anyway, so we probably wouldn't have that many more reservations.
Well, unless you had
That's
some of these that are on canceled, and somebody else had it back on, then they would be subject to the new
grandfathered in.
policy.
Great.
Yeah. We'll be glad to institute it May 1st
Okay.
and grandfather the
grandfather.
others.
So if there are no other questions or comments, we'll need a,
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt this policy with the addendum that this policy become effective May 1 of this year, and that prior May 1 bookings would be grandfathered in under the old provision.
need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Good idea. Next up, Marlene Sewell is going to come and tell us about the Sunday Fun Series. Marlene, welcome.
Good afternoon, all. I appreciate being able to be here. What I'd like to be able to do is change our Sunday Fun program to craft activities and programs that are offered at various times during the month, not just on Sunday. They'd be short time period. We would provide all the supplies and activities. What we had done before was the Sunday Fun, and it was very successful for a while, but I seem to always pick out the Sundays that have, they're like below 32 degrees, or, there's snow on the ground and people don't get out. We were donating the food to the Family Resource Center, and they were now collecting food at the city school's main office for distribution as they see needed. But by asking people to changing to this other program, which would be doing a lot of the same kind of crafts, we would be asked for people to register in advance. I'd have an idea of how many people are coming, so I'd know how many kits to make up. We would increase the quality and the number of offerings each month. And but if somebody came that hadn't really registered but was willing to join in and pay their fee, I would certainly have enough extra so that they can join us. We would do this under the basis of a premium pass charge for both adults and for youth. And then, of course, we would put those numbers into RecTrack as they came, because I don't have access to that at Jameson. And just to give you some ideas of what some of the programs would be, I have a National Lollipop Day, where we're going to make lollipops out of, I think it's Jolly Ranchers you use, and you melt them and stuff. We'll do bracelet for teens. There's a worldwide knitting day in public. I've already talked to Sheila about doing it out in front of Canonsburg. Anybody who knits or crochets could come and join us, and we'd just do it for fun and make new friends and see what everybody else is doing project-wise. There's a log cabin day, macaroni day, and that's for little kids. And so I've changed the ages, too, adjusting them. A thread the needle day, where we'll teach some embroidery stitches to teens. Friendship Day, which I believe is going to be like, I moved it to the Friday before the tax-free weekend, which I believe will be like that first weekend in August, and they can make friendship bracelets and take them to school with them. And then, of course, there's the loom knitting for adults and seniors, and there's also one for older teens and their parents. And then, of course, one of my favorites will be National Tooth Fairy Day, and I believe that's in August, and we'll be making little tooth pillows for the 4 to 6-year-olds to take home and use for their teeth when they lose them. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Marlene regarding this change? If there are no questions, we need a motion for approval.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Marlene, thanks.
Thank you.
It's going to be really nice. Next up is a proposed wellness and fitness program, and Chad Hill and Allison Davidson are here to present that. Chad, welcome.
I would like to propose a program for group personal training. It will allow individuals to train at a discounted rate while receiving similar benefits as one-on-one personal training. Individuals will help motivate one another just as a group exercise setting. It will be a mix of like a group exercise class with one-on-one personal training, and it's going to offer personal training at a discounted rate. We'll have 3 different levels of training, beginner, intermediate, and high intensity. We will offer it from individuals ages 16 and up. Each participant will be required to fill out a participant or physical activity readiness questionnaire, and they may also be required to get a doctor's release depending on their answers to the PAR-Q. I propose that we offer this at $120 per 4-week sessions, which will be a total of 8 sessions, and it averages out to $15 per session, where right now we have personal training that's about $35 per session. So it gives people a good deal for personal training, and they're able to get similar benefits to one-on-one personal training.
All right. Any questions for Chad regarding this program? If there are none, we need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Chad, thanks. I think that'll be a great program. Angela Jackson's going to tell us about relay. Well, Angela, you're not doing that.
Still got Allison.
Allison's still up. Okay, sorry.
There's a bunch of programs.
Oh, I jumped the gun, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's summer, so we're doing our summer programming. So I have several that, for whatever reason, we wound up planning for the summer. I'm going to start with our 2 running programs that we have going on. The Train for Success is a training running program for 5K. And the running programs are run by Jennifer. I don't run. The Train for Success is for the 5Ks. Jennifer's plan is to be able to take you from a walking program, which she's already started her walking program, or she has a walking program that'll start on the 16th. But the Train for Success will take you from walking to running a 5K. And she has planned into that program that with the registration fee, you're not only meeting twice a week for those 8 weeks, but you're also getting the registration for the Runs with Scissors race. So she's included that into that training package. And then going a little further, she has a half marathon training class that can work along with that if they want to, but really the half marathon is to obviously train you for doing half marathons. There is a requirement that you be able to run 3 miles, but the object of that program is you're going to meet on a weekly basis 3 times a week during the week, and then long runs are going to be on Saturdays. And again, with that registration fee, that's going to be included into that registration fee, the fee for the middle half. So on that one, there's going to be limited registration. So those are the running programs. The summer programs that we have going on, we're trying to hit some of those age groups that we don't normally get to hit during the school year. So the Summer Strength Series is going to be a weight training program for teenagers. That's going to be a 4-week class. It's going to be 6 classes, and we're just going to be taking them, or I'm going to be taking them up in the weight room, showing them proper usage of the equipment and teaching them how to create their own workout plans. And so by the end of that program, they should be able to work out on their own, given their age, with or without supervision. The children's cooking class is, again, a summer program that we're going to do. It's just going to have some 5 and under, where we're going to bring them in and teach them how to cook easy, healthy meals. The Get in Sync program is going to be a synchronized swimming class. I'm not sure how that's going to go yet. We haven't done it before, but that's going to be 12 classes. It's a 6-week program where we're going to have Marjorie, one of our instructors, teach the class a synchronized swimming program. I'm not sure if we're going to perform at the end. I'm not sure how that one's going to go yet. Marjorie always does something great. So it should be fun and perhaps entertaining, at least for the lifeguards. Then finally, we've been given a great opportunity with the Arthritis Foundation. I've been working with them personally and professionally since I started with the city full-time with the senior center, and they have 4 exercise programs that they are launching and relaunching, and they're wanting us to be, or Sportscom, Parks and Recreation, to be one of the first facilities, one of the first entities in Middle Tennessee to actually run all 4 programs. And I'm actually already certified in 2 of them, so I guess that's kind of why they wanted to use us, but they are going to certify us in the other 2 at no charge for us. And then we're going to run the programs for them, and all we do in return is give them our attendance numbers so that they can use those when they go to apply for grants and funding and some of their research. So they had the Tai Chi program there, the aquatic program, the exercise program, and the Walk with Ease program, which I don't know what that is yet because I haven't been trained in that one yet. She's bringing me the information in a couple of weeks. So lots of stuff that we're doing, and it's all going to happen during the summer for one reason or the other. Any questions?
You guys are busy.
Yeah.
Now, you want to do something really entertaining. You get Mr. Rodinger and Mr. Miller in that synchronized swimming class. Then we'll all come out and watch.
We were discussing that.
I think I'll refrain from comment
request
on
a solo.
You're more than welcome to join.
I have a question.
Sure.
On the Arthritis Foundation programs.
Yes.
Is this pricing, how was that arrived at? Because I'm thinking of folks 55 and over, perhaps, who are retired. Mm-hmm. Is this price friendly to that age group?
Yes, sir. What I did was they combined prices to what they would be. It would be very close to the price that they would pay if they were paying for an individual exercise class. So we just combined the prices. We broke down the classes and combined those prices together to come up with the fee. So it's the equivalent of taking those classes if you were paying a premium pass for the exercise class.
As a follow-up, is that why these classes are offered at 8:15 in the morning?
Yes.
As opposed to other times when some folks that have jobs that they can't?
Well, this is just how we're starting out. Now, I'm not planning on doing this and stopping, but this is just the first time, and I was trying to get, along with the pool, we like to only use the pool during the summer because that's when the indoor pool is open. So this was just what was available the first go-round. And with that population that we are targeting, usually a mid-morning tends to be better for them. And if we do have interest, in the future, I can plan additional classes that are in later in the day. And certainly if we have interest, we'll do that at an earlier time. But for the first go-round doing these 4 classes, that was just the times and dates. Because they coincide with classes that we already have, so we're hoping we'll get a trickle over and get the people who've already come to classes either coming before or after those.
It's good questions. Any others? We need to approve the programs as presented that Allison has brought before us.
I so move.
Need a second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Allison, you're going to be busy. Thank you. Now Angela Jackson's going to talk about Relay Rutherford.
Thank you. What I'd like to ask today is a one-time exception to policy to allow the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation of Murfreesboro to utilize the Murfreesboro Greenway System on Saturday, May 12th. What they're doing is a 55-mile team relay race across Rutherford County. It's called Relay Rutherford, and it's something that Leadership Rutherford has been very active in helping to coordinate that event. Of the 55 miles, there is a piece piece of the Greenway that they would like to travel when they're traveling through Murfreesboro, looking through their race route, it really does make a lot of sense, and something that was very important to the planning group to use. This is something that normally our policy does not allow. I feel like our reasons for that policy and the reasons to grant this exception are pretty valid, and I'd like to share those with you. Our policy reads, the Murfreesboro Greenway System is primarily funded through federal transportation dollars, and the trail will therefore remain open for regular public use whenever possible. The Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department will make every effort to program in such a way as to limit obstruction and congestion of the trail. Outside organizations must limit use to designated green space with the filing of appropriate event application and payment of fees. The trail itself cannot be used for special events and/or fundraisers by outside groups or organizations. Such requests will be rerouted to other parks and venues. After we opened the Gateway Trail area, this group approved an amendment. The amendment says the Gateway Trail may be used for special events with written approval from the City of Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department. Special use requires that all rules and regulations regarding the reservation for the Gateway Island and Trail be adhered to, and that all fees apply as required. What this group is going to do, I feel like the reasons for the policy as far as obstruction and congestion of the trail don't really apply to this group. They are going to have a small number of people relaying it across the entire county. We put in the points below, and I'll read those to you, that no more than 50 participants will pass through over the course of a 3-hour period. What the race coordinator has shared with me is that she doesn't expect for us to even know that they're there as they come on and come off. What we have put in the bullets are things that we have worked with that group, some things that they have told us as far as how that event will affect the Greenway, affect the regular use, and our day in general. We would like to consider this contingent that these be included in their agreement. No part of the Murfreesboro Greenway System will be closed at any time. The event shall not disrupt regular public use. JDRF may place a traffic cone or similar marker to direct runners at the point they enter and leave the Greenway. The marker may be placed beside the trail but not on the trail in order to limit interference with the Greenway users. Runners will be staggered to discourage groups or packs of runners. No more than 50 participants will pass through the course over a 3-hour period. The Greenway portion of the event will be considered an unassisted section of the route. Water stations or similar will not be allowed, and the rate includes an at-grade railroad crossing. Participants must be instructed to detour or wait if a train is present. Passing through parked box cars is prohibited. What the route is including is hopping on the Greenway basically at the College Street trailhead near the General Bragg entrance. They'll come down Garrison, hop on the trail at that point, and then they'll be getting off adjacent to Dodge's Chicken, down closer to the Cannonsburg section of trail. What we expect that day is basically if they hadn't have asked, we might not know that they're there. This is not a typical race such as those that we do at the Gateway Island where there are start, group finishes, a lot of activity that would interfere with regular use, and for those reasons I'd like to ask for your consideration to grant this one-time exception.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes, I have a question. Why is the Greenway portion an unassisted section?
This was something that this group had requested. They had stated that it was going to be unassisted and that they weren't going to do water stations that were there. Basically, the reason why I was including it in this, not because they asked to do it, but because when granting an exception, I want to limit future exceptions to be consistent with this one. I don't want to say we're opening up the Greenway now to a variety of more intense, more detailed, more obtrusive events. We're looking for this one-time exception. The request was for an unassisted area.
Thank you.
This would probably limit also, by saying that, having to clean up trash that they might have left over. So I really think that's a good inclusion.
That's a good point.
Now, when you talk about this one-time exception, is it just for this group or for?
Just for this group, for this event, is what I'm asking for. Yes, sir.
But when you start making exceptions for one group, somebody else will come along.
Mr. Turner, we may have other request in the future.
Right.
I think this policy sets precedent for future groups. And we're asking for the one-time exception for this event.
Right.
Not to say that there wouldn't be others,
Right.
but this really kind of sets the stage on how far we will allow the usage of the Greenway.
Well, with that in mind, I think we also need to know, what it says only 50 people doing this through a 3-hour period. What number wouldn't be an exception? You see what you base that? Say if it was going to be 200 or 300 people, would you still want an exception for that number? I'm saying even along with your exceptions, have some kind of policy in mind that that there's no exception if you have 400 people that's going to come through. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely. I think that's a very good point. What we are trying to do, and the reason why, instead of asking for a policy change, why we're asking for the one-time exception, is if a group comes forth with a similar event, or if next year this group comes back and they said, well, last year we had 35, this year we're going to have 3,500, that we would be able to say, we want to look at that on an individual basis. I think it's a very good point.
Yeah, okay.
Good questions. Any others?
I move for approval as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you.
Next item is a follow-up from our previous meeting, and it's regarding the volunteer background checks. As you'll recall, at our last meeting, this issue came up. We had decided at that point to defer and ask Baker to come back with changes and some inclusion of language that we discussed at the last one. She emailed that out on a couple of different occasions to this group for review, and I believe got very little feedback, so I think you included what was requested. And so we come back trying to put this to rest today. Kelly?
Okay, you have before you the revised volunteer background check policy that was brought to you for review in February. Also, following the meeting on February 1st, at your request, I sent you a memo outlining some potential changes to the policy presented to you, and you had also requested some information about the various criminal offenses that would be encompassed in a felony. And I provided you with a list of those. So the policy that you have before you still includes Section C. It says violation of any federal or state law or city ordinance relating to force or violence within the last 5 years. In Section F, D, the other section you'd ask for more information on deals with felony offense other than violence or sex within the past 5 years. And you had requested the additional information from me in order to decide whether you wanted to include those clauses or revise them.
Okay. What are your questions or comments regarding the proposed policy?
Ms. Baker, you had in your memo, looked like the language you took out or you put a recommendation in that took out the other felony offenses. But this revision, you kept it, you put it back in.
Well, this one that you're seeing before you is the one that came to you at the February meeting. I did not get any phone calls in response to my memo, so I didn't make any changes because no one responded to my memo to tell me whether they agreed with my proposed changes.
Okay, I misinterpreted it. Okay. I was taking, I guess, your recommendation, or I was assuming that you were recommending striking that part about the other felony types of offenses. That wasn't your intention, or?
Well, that seemed to be what the board was discussing at the meeting in February, was potentially removing felony offenses other than sex or violence. And one justification for not including that broad category of felony offenses is you're really trying to focus on felonies that impact a person's ability to perform the volunteer work and deal with the safety of the children and the elderly. when they are volunteering. So that's why originally the policy would be geared more towards the crimes that are violent in nature or sexual in nature or deal with drugs. So that's why I provided you a list of all of the felony offenses so the commission could determine if they wanted to include that 5-year prohibition on felony offenses in general.
Well, I appreciate your research on that, and I, for one, look back at that list, and it is a very long list of other felonies that I just don't think we can cherry pick, this one over that one. I think it probably causes more problems than it was worth. So I'm just looking at the will of the commission as a whole.
Any other questions or comments? If there are none, we'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the policy as presented.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Eddie. Need a second? Second. Thank you, Elsie. Have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Kelly, thank you for your work on this. I think it's a really important policy. Last item on the agenda is Mr. Thomas Laird here to talk to us about some recommendations for various athletic sponsorships. Thomas, welcome.
Welcome. Good afternoon, members of the Commission. I want to take this opportunity to thank the Commission as well as the entire city for their support of athletics. I left each of you a magnet that we've taken our 5 major sports that we run in-house here in the athletic department, and we've consolidated registrations to a single month so that you're able to put this on your calendar or refrigerator. We do track and field registration in the month of March. Of course, currently, this being April, we're doing youth volleyball registration. Football and cheerleading is in July, and basketball is in October. So I want to update everyone to know that we still have room left in track and field. They can contact the athletic office if they want to get involved with track and field. We're also taking youth volleyball registration, and that's for boys and girls. So ages 8 to 17. So you can sign up for that now. With these programs, in our goals was one of those things through the year that we set up for ourselves in our goals was to streamline our registration processes. Also part of our goals that we set forth, I think Lanny set it for us as superintendents, and we passed that on to staff, and we challenged our staff members to come up with ways to increase revenues without increasing fees, which is a challenge. And one way that the entire athletic staff came up with that was to increase the number of sponsors. Well, as you well know, since we've had athletics, we've always offered individual team sponsors. And we really looked at that to try to figure out why our sponsors weren't where they wanted them to be. Of course, it's the economy, but we have very inexpensive sponsorship rates. And what we found out with the help of our athletic coordinator, who worked in sales prior to coming here, Ian Gilmore, we found that when we're asking for sponsors for football and basketball, it's usually the second half of the year. Most companies allocate advertising dollars the first 2 to 3 months out of the year. A lot of the people that are in charge of that are ready to get that off of their plate, get it off of their desk, and move forward. So we're losing a lot of opportunities to baseball and soccer, different organizations, because those sponsor dollars are going out, whereas our largest sports are later in the year. So I challenged Ann to come up with a sponsorship program that could captivate all of that. And I think she did an excellent job. We would like to go to a variety of sponsors. We'd like to offer a platinum, gold, silver, bronze, and then continue to do the individual sponsors as well. And by doing this, we offer that sponsorship package. We can start looking for sponsors in January when these corporations and big companies release these advertising dollars early in the year. And I want to thank Ms. Baker and Ms. Jackson for their hard work on developing a policy to coincide with the sponsorship program. Obviously, we want family-oriented businesses. We want sponsors that are going to meet the goals and mission of the Recreation Department as well as the Athletics Department. So I think they did an excellent job. The procedure would be that once we find a sponsor, someone expresses interest in the sponsor, or even us contacting and giving this information to them, they'll fill out a sponsor form which must be approved. And that would come through my approval. Once we approve that sponsor, then we would enter into a sponsorship agreement, similar to a use agreement that we do with people that want to utilize our parks and our ball fields. It would be a much smaller agreement, but it would incorporate all of these things that are in this agreement or that are in this policy to make sure it's clear to them. We have in here, for example, one of the sponsors offers them to be able to set up a booth at our bowl games. Please note that booths that are being set up are either at our evaluation process or at our bowl game. We're not setting booths up in our parks on a continuous basis throughout the season. It's the bowl game, which is the highlight of the season, or it's the evaluation process where everyone must come on one particular day. So we're targeting those 2 days to do that. Banners are the same way. Our bowl games are held at the high schools, so we feel comfortable with staying within the city sign ordinance. And what I'm asking you today is to approve this policy and the sponsorship package so we can move forward with trying to get on pace with the rest of the sports community in bringing our revenues up to where they need to be so that our programs at least break even with the quality we're able to offer.
Thanks, Thomas. Any questions? Questions or comments for Thomas? There are none. We need a motion for acceptance of the policy and the sponsorship packages as presented.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Good work, Thomas. I think it's a really good idea.
One last thing I would like to give an update that we have worked. We've been working diligently with Central Magnet School. I think that recently that the community has felt the need for them to have a place to play ball, and I've worked with both the Optimist Club and Central Magnet, and the Central has gone to the school board, and we're looking at moving them into field number 5 at Starplex next year, allowing some renovations of that field and making them a home right there in the heart of McKnight Park. And I think it'll be a good opportunity for both the Optimist Little League Association as well as Central Magnet, and we're excited about making that partnership with them.
Right. That's good.
Does that include baseball?
That is baseball.
Baseball. What about softball?
Softball, currently we're looking at having them go into the McKnight softball complex and play on the 2 fields right there. One is a stadium-style field, and then the other one is a regular field. They're currently playing at Old Fort Park, but we would move all of Central to McKnight Park.
That's good.
Great.
Thanks, Thomas. That was our last item on the agenda. Is there any other business to come before the commission?
I've got one thing I'd like to bring up.
Okay.
And it relates back to the same discussion I've had or mentioned several times regarding tennis here in the city of Murfreesboro, and what this commission, along with the city schools, can do to help improve and enhance the experience. There seems to be a very big shortage of court space, and I know part of this is not it's not fully the responsibility of the city of Murfreesboro because it involves a lot of our county schools, but we do have some tennis parks on city property, albeit not in the greatest condition, but it limits the ability. And for example, this junior team tennis program kicked off this past weekend. The coordinators of that program anticipated about 30 participants. They got 80. And that just goes to show you the explosion that's going on in our city and our county. I'd like for us to kind of get something on the front burner instead of the back burner, to try to look at what we can do to work with the county schools and the city schools to see what we can do to kind of help out all these schools and and people that are just participating in the sport.
Well, what we've done up to this point, last year one of our major issues was the use of courts on the weekends. Obviously, especially when the weather gets nice, the weekends is the optimum time. And we had middle schools and high schools playing at the same time, so they were playing 7 days a week. What we worked out this past year was all the middle schools moved their season to the fall. And in coordination with the high schools, they have relinquished Saturday and Sunday so that the courts could be open to the public. Now, we did have a tennis tournament that was going on this weekend in conjunction with the junior team tennis, so this was a very busy weekend for tennis. We do have renovation plans for the Patterson Park courts to set those up as the Smart Starts courts, so that Quick Start, so that they can take part of that program to the Patterson Park courts. We recognize that we build 16 courts, we need about 16 more. And I'm sure as soon as we build those, we'll need more courts. We are trying to allocate specific courts in terms of the old courts and trying to free up the new courts for the general public over the weekend. Now, the explosion of the youth tennis is phenomenal. We haven't experienced that much in the past. And like Mr. Tip said, we've had 30, maybe 40 kids in our youth program in the past. Now there's 76 kids signed up currently for that Quick Start tennis program, and they're scheduled to play Friday evenings and Sunday afternoons right now. So Saturday morning seems to be the peak time when everyone would like to play, and I would just like to encourage the general public. I know you'd love to play Saturday mornings, but I was there at 5 p.m. and there were 3 courts being used, leaving a total of 21 courts available Saturday afternoon. So if avid tennis players this time of year take that into consideration, maybe adjust their times a little bit to when it's maybe not a peak time, that would help us get through this time of year.
What does it cost us to add lighting to the other courts at Old Fort? I mean, the new courts, if I'm not mistaken, there's only about half.
There's 9, half of them are lit.
It was around $350,000.
Okay. I mean, that would help this serious backlog with all the high schools. And again, the high schools are not really the problem of this board. I understand that, and not the city as a whole, because they are county schools, but they are using our courts.
Well, we have an agreement with high schools. They did pay for a good portion of the new courts, and their agreement states that during the TWSAA tennis season, they have use of those courts. And that runs all the way up until spring fling, and that's a written agreement that we have with the county.
Tri-party agreement.
Exactly, tri-party. And now what we have done is we've made an amendment with that, and it's not necessarily amended, but we've made a different cooperative agreement to allow the county schools, middle schools, to play a fall season. And that only ties up courts on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the fall, frees up Saturdays and Sundays during the spring. Like I said, this past weekend was unusual. We typically do not book weekend tournaments, but we have a partnership with MTSU to host some of our other larger tournaments in the summer, and through that partnership we did have some college tennis out there this weekend.
I appreciate all of that. I guess I'm just...
Yeah, Mr. Tips, I guess looking toward the future, we know tennis is one of those up-and-coming sports. We've recognized that. A couple of things that we're doing. I've asked to look at it comprehensively, not just tennis, but all across Parks and Recreation. Ask for a comprehensive master plan. Talk to Mr. Lyons about that. Looking at things like city school campuses and incorporating them back into the mix of being community parks, and looking at the amenities that would both double for school facilities and for parks and recreation facilities, so we can identify those and see what we need on those particular campuses. In this budget proposal that I have for this upcoming 2012-2013 budget, I've put in money to upgrade the courts at Siegel and at Case and Lane, which we feel like those courts are in condition that if
They
we
are,
go
but
ahead,
they're also further away from the majority of other folks that might be users of it too.
well, and there's users all over, and we've got courts. We've got two really nice courts over at Rogers Park, and we do have some people that go over there, use those courts. Like Thomas says, we're updating the courts at Patterson. You remember I brought you a $10,000 grant from USTA so we could do that. So we're looking very comprehensively at the number of courts. Generally speaking, the rule of thumb says for every 2,000 people you have in a community, you should have one court. If you think of that, we're a community of almost 110,000 people. So you can just do the math on that. And if you know the number of courts that we have, that tells you very quickly if you're an active tennis community, you're short. So we're looking at that.
Right. We currently have 28 functioning courts that are available, and then of course we borrow courts from MTSU, and we even collaborate with the country club on occasion to host some of the bigger tournaments. But we're aware that tennis is something that we have to do. The Murfreesboro Tennis Association does an excellent job of keeping their website updated, and does a great job with our department to keep that high school schedule updated, and it is online. If you go to our athletics website, you can download that schedule. If you go to murfreesborotennis.com, and I strongly encourage them to get that too, Murfreesboro Tennis, something simple. But that has every schedule, every lesson, everything that is going on at those tennis courts. And if the general public would just take a look at that prior to going out there, then they'll be able to get a prime time.
Tim, did you have something else to add?
Yes, I have a couple comments on the 2011 annual report. Murfreesboro Parks and Rec are like this great team that wins the national championship every year. You just expect them to be there. Yet, I think we all understand that the work that went into these accomplishments and these numbers are pretty amazing. We are the Parks and Recreation Department that other cities want to be in Tennessee. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. I want to make one last comment. It goes kind of what we're talking about with the tennis. This is going to continue to be an ongoing challenge for us. It has been, not only as it pertains to tennis, but recreational services in general. One of the challenges that we face, and you allude to it, Tim, we are the Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation Department, and we cannot be expected to provide all of the recreational services and facilities for this entire county.
That's right.
I thought the project that we did on the tennis in conjunction with the county was a great step in the right direction. And I think to accomplish some of these things, we're going to have to see more of that because the city taxpayers expect us to look after their tax dollars, and we've got to be good stewards of that.
Right, and
it is a challenge.
We are unique in a lot of departments. I am the chair of the athletic branch for Tennessee Parks Recreation Association, so I have a lot of communication with a lot of recreation departments throughout the state. And it is really unique in the fact that we don't have additional fees for county residents or even folks from outside of the county. We provide services for the general public within our area, and it's commendable that we do that. But when we start looking at trying to accommodate outside of Murfreesboro, we tend to lose focus of we are Murfreesboro Parks and Recreation, and our number one priority is our citizens of Murfreesboro.
Right. Well stated.
Thank you.
If there's no other business, we stand adjourned. Thank you all.
Appreciate it.